Hi, in this tutorial we're going to have a look at building a basic Hello World project in Xcode and then to deploy it on a iOS device. When we come to do the same for Unity, then it's going to be fairly instructive to see what an Xcode project looks like before we use Unity, because the Xcode project will have the same characteristics in terms of the settings and what you have to do to actually push it onto a device. Remember, in Unity, the Unity IDE, when you choose to deploy to an iOS device, builds you an intermediate Xcode project, and there are settings such as for orientation of your app on the device that you can select or deselect that will be the same when you just build a simple Hello World project. So building a Hello World project really gets rid of all the unnecessary clutter that would kind of mask some of the concepts and features of a more complex Unity project. So we'll be using Xcode 11.21, which is already loaded. So I'm going to double click on my Hello World projects, and this is the Xcode interface. We've got the general settings here. So the display name, that's the name that appears on the against the app on the device. The bundle identifier, that's the unique identifier for any given app, and typically we use a reverse URL notation when we put our bundle identifier together. So my YouTube resource area is found by typing in ucode.uk. It will take you there, and so that's my domain name, and so I'm using uk.ucode.helloworld as my bundle identifier, Hello World being the name of the app per se, which describes what it is. Then we've got the versions of this particular app, version 1, build 1. So this is our target devices, so we're targeting iPhone and iPad. This is the main interface. We've got the device orientation selections we can choose. So whether we want all four, so portrait upside down, the inverse portrait, or landscape left, landscape right. For some apps, especially Unity apps that probably feature a 3D scenario, then having an upside or portrait orientation probably isn't what you want. That makes no sense. So you could switch those two off if you wanted to just have the user to be able to run the app in either landscape left, landscape right. In other words, landscape up, landscape upside down. So we'll leave those as is for the time being. The rest is really out of the box kind of stuff. The next thing is I've already plugged in my iPhone, which I'm using to deploy it. These other options here are for simulators, Apple's term for what other realms call emulators. So we've got a range of iOS devices simulated there. Mine isn't there, but obviously I could add an additional simulator if I wanted to. The drawback with using a simulator is that you can't test things like the functionality of a gyroscope, accelerometer, which kind of are integral to lots of games, especially 3D games. So you can do stuff just getting started. You can choose a simulator if you don't have an iOS device to use. But really, for beyond sort of simple stuff, and if you're building 3D games especially, you would want to have an iOS device that you could actually deploy to, because the iOS device doesn't act as a window to your app. The app gets deployed to it, so it's there. You can disconnect your connecting cable afterwards and walk away with your device, and your app is there functional on the device. Right, so that's the general settings. The other important settings is the so-called signing and capabilities. So to start developing in iOS, apart from having the software in place and obviously a device that you can use to deploy to, the other essential thing is to create, if you haven't already got one, an Apple ID. And by having an Apple ID, it will allow you to sign up as a developer. And when you sign up as a developer, you can sign up to a personal development. Basically, that's one person in a team. So I'm a team of one. That's the personal team. That allows you to build and deploy apps onto your device, and you can have other devices. So I think it's up to 99, maybe something like that. It's quite a lot. But if you're a personal team, you typically have one device that you can push to, deploy to. The limitations are that once you push your app onto your device, after a period of normally 4 or 5 days, it will tell you in Xcode. There's a way you can go find that in Xcode, but it will time out. It will still be there, but it won't run in the foreground. It will kind of launch and then go run in the background. And so to get it to run in the foreground again, so it's displayed on the screen and stays on the screen, you need to rebuild it and redeploy it to your device. That's one limitation. The second limitation, which is more important, is that having a personal team, you weren't able to put your apps on the App Store. So that's the most important restriction in having a personal team developer account, is you won't be able to publish your apps on the App Store. Having a full account will cost you around about £69 a year, $99, something like that, and that will enable you, that's paid annually, and then that will enable you to put your apps on the App Store. The other thing about a personal team that you can't do is you can't build cloud-based apps even to run on your own device. So that's a restriction. And there are some example cloud-based apps that are available that you won't be able to actually test on the device because it's restrictive as a personal team member. But anyway, a personal team is a way to get started, because you can take a simple app, a Unity app as well, push it onto your device, test it, and then develop it, and then if it times out, you can just redeploy it and so on. So anyway, let's build this and push it onto the device. So I'm going to clean the build folder just so it can go through some process, because I know it'll build, it's going to build okay, hopefully. And then build for running. Build succeeded, and then product, we're going to run the device. We're going to run the app now, and then there's the app that's launched. That was the splash screen we saw immediately, and then the actual app, which is just Hello World. Okay, so there we are. That's seen how to create a basic Hello World app, push it onto a device, and some of the aspects about navigation around the IDE. Obviously, the IDE is a very sophisticated piece of software. There's lots of settings behind the scenes that you could go to, but generally, if everything's building and doing what it wants, then the workflow, the pipeline from Unity over to your device is build Unity, deploy it to an iOS project, get it in Xcode, build and push to a device. So really all your compile issues are going to be in Unity. If you're not creating native iOS apps, then all your compilation and stuff is going to happen in Unity. So if it doesn't build in Unity, you're not going to be able to build the iOS device anyway. So really it's the intermediate pipeline. It's just getting it to an Xcode project so you can push your Unity app onto your device. Okay, thanks for watching.